This week the Yukon is extremely close to getting done. The students replace an axle seal in a Dodge truck, and they replace the struts and tie rods on this van. More importantly, this is the last time you will see the Auto 3s together as they're graduating today. In fact, they'll be graduating just a couple of hours after I post this episode. You will see some of them returning as they prepare for their national competitions in the coming weeks, but also some will be returning in the summer to continue work on the 48 Chevy project, so we hope you tune in for that. Given everything that's happened in the last 15 or so months, they've done a fantastic job, and I'm going to miss them. I'm very proud of them. They've left big shoes to fill, but I think the rising Auto 3s are up for the challenge. Thanks for tuning in. This is the last time you'll see these guys all together. Here's how they would look each day arriving at school. Here they are in their coveralls, ready for work. Here they are holding tools and components that meant the most to them. And here they are as I am most proud of them, donning their graduation attire. This is what's left of the dipstick tube that broke off in our Yukon engine. Originally was going to put a bolt in there and see if I could get it to twist and then pull out, but this one looks like I'm probably going to have to drill. There wasn't enough room in the wheel well for me to film what I was doing, but I did start to drill, and you can see I've got the flange portion of it that came out with the drill bit, which is incredible. So we have the smaller piece below that I'm going to try to go after next. After a little more drilling and using a magnet to pull out the shavings, I was able to get the dipstick tube pressed back into the block. So now we're ready to get our exhaust manifold back on and get this thing closer to getting started. Here the fan is going back on. Here they're hanging the exhaust. And with the hood going back on, we're that much closer to taking this for a test drive. Eric's counting the rotations of the tie rod as he removes it so we can put the new tie rod in the same amount of turns. We still have to do an alignment, but that'll get us a lot closer for an initial setting. How many you have? 30. 30 revolutions? Wow. Okay, here. We put a piece of tape on the van to keep track of the revolutions of the tie rod. This inner tie rod did not have flats to remove it with the tool, so students are using an air chisel to dig grooves in it and bump it around. In some instances, we can't use an impact gun to actually tighten the nut. So for this strut rod, we're actually going to use a Torx bit to loosen the center while he holds the nut from the outside, and that's going to tighten it up. The next step on the Dodge Caravan is to put the inner tie rods in, and this is the tool. Several months ago, I did a quick demonstration on this. So what's going to happen is this is the wrench that's going to go into this adapter that goes on the flats of the tie rod, and it gets locked into that tool, and then they're going to use an impact gun to tighten them down. So let's see if they can get that done. So you can see he's feeding it over the inner tie rod shaft. Then they're going to set the tool on the flats, and then once it's locked into the tool, he'll hit the impact gun and that'll tighten it in.
It's love. Go. Go.
You remember we had 30 rotations on the passenger side for the tie rod, so he's taking the new tie rod and turning it in 30 revolutions, beginning at 6 o'clock as the tie rod points down. On this side it was 26 revolutions, and he's turning his in, doing the same thing. We're going to line this up anyway, and the tie rods are going to be changed, but this at least gets us close to the original position, so when we go to do the alignment it won't take as long. The aftermarket tie rods come with Zerk fittings, more commonly referred to as grease fittings, but Zerk fitting is the actual name. So we're putting those in now. So that way we'll be able to grease this between oil changes, so the tie rod should last longer.
We're going to start with Dylan, the diesel. Come on down here.
Congratulations.
Second place in diesel. Way to go, folks. All right, motorcycle. What is it, Jonathan? Come on over here.
Congratulations.
Yes, sir. This is our state champion in motorcycle. Congratulations, our state champion in motorcycle service technology. Auto maintenance. All right. There we go. Keep it straight. There you go. All right, this is our state champion in auto maintenance.
Congratulations. Good job.
And you get the free test too, and you get your 10-year bike. There you go. Congratulations, our state champion. Auto service technology state champion. Eric, come on down. Come on over.
Congratulations.
Yep, good job, Mr. Champion. And our last one's collision repair. Now, that's a different instructor, right? No, still you? Okay, all right. So, come on down here. Our state champion.
Congratulations. You can always tell the worker guys got holes in their coveralls and the dirtiest, you know.
Collision repair, see, not everything out. Congratulations, Mr. Stevens.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. While doing the brake work on this truck, we noticed that the rear wheel seal was leaking, so we're going to remove the hub and replace that seal.
The first step is to remove the axle. Next, I'm removing the snap ring and the lock lug.
Now he's removing the spanner nut. All right, and there's our outer bearing, so we should be able to pop the hub off from here. Got it. Our seal removal tool is a little too small for this particular vehicle, so we're going to flat rate this. What he's done is he's put the spanner nut back on the axle, and he's going to pop the seal and the bearing out that way. All right, now you can remove the spanner nut, get the bearing out of the way, and then we'll get our new seal installed. All right, we've got our new seal. We're going to get knocking it in with a dead blow hammer. With the new seal in place, we're going to put a film of oil around the seal so we don't install it dry. They're using a spanner nut on this axle to set the bearing preload. It's a spanner nut because it uses a spanner socket to fit into these grooves that are cut into it. You can notice there's no flats on it for like a large socket to fit on. So these pins will fit into those grooves, and that's how we will drive that nut in to set the preload for the bearing. So right now Blake is using it as a driver just to spin the nut in to seat the bearing, and then we'll use the proper procedure to set the preload. So we've got the spanner wrench set up for the socket so we can set our get it tightened to set the bearing before we do the preload. So we're going to have the hub turning while he's torquing it, and that'll seat the bearing to 22 pound-feet. Now that we've got this set to 22 pound-feet of torque, we're going to back it off 30 degrees.
Next I'm going to back the spanner nut off 30 degrees.
Now that it's been backed off 30 degrees, the directions tell us to move it back a little further until the grooves line up for the lock key, and that'll set our preload. Next we'll install the snap ring to keep that in place, and then the axle goes back in. With the bearing preload set, it's time to put the axle back in. Next he's torquing the axle bolts to 95 pound-feet. Then we'll be able to put on the new rotors and pads, and then we'll be done. But first we will need to make sure that we check the gear oil, because we did lose a little bit of gear oil between changing the seal and also what we lost because it was leaking. Before installing the rotor permanently, we're cleaning off the Cosmoline with brake clean. As we've said in other videos, the Cosmoline is a coating that's put on the rotors to keep them from rusting in the box. The inside there that he's doing is for the brake shoes for the parking brake. You know, this is a four-wheel disc. It does use brake shoes, as you can see back there, for the parking brake. So he's doing this while it's on backwards. Now he's going to take and flip it, keeping his fingers off the face of the rotor. Then we're going to put it on correctly. Then he'll do the outside face, and then we'll be ready to put on our calipers with the new pads. Now the brake hardware goes back on, and the job is complete. Next time on Bulldog Builds, one way or another, we're going to have that Yukon running and driving. We'll get the alignment done on that van, and we'll see if Alejandro gets some primer on that Nova hood. See you next week.